Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, Motor City Mad Mouth. First and foremost, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. I know Christmas is right around the corner, so Merry Christmas to all and Happy New Year as well. With that said, we have a four-man crew tonight, leading off with Greg Fuchs. Welcome back, Greg.
Glad to be here, Scott.
Mel Farr Jr., my superstar running back and friend. Welcome back, Mel.
Thank you. Great to be back.
And Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion. Good evening, Mr. Curti.
Hey guys, how are you?
All right. Well, judging by my ball cap tonight, you guessed it, folks, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I happened to be up at the Jacksonville-Houston game on Sunday. The Houston Texans won 30-16 over the Jaguars. And the obvious subject matter wasn't who the coach was, but who it wasn't. And I'm talking about Mr. Urban Meyer. So during the course of this broadcast, folks, we're going to talk about whether is Urban Meyer hireable? Will he ever get another job anywhere? And we'll talk about a lot of other things. I want to preface some other interesting points off the bat that when we talk about Sunshine State coaches, hasn't been a very good year for a lot of them this year. When you consider the fact that Joel Quenneville had to resign in late October because of a cover-up dealing with the Chicago Blackhawks in 2010. The Panthers at the time were 7-0 when Quenneville was in charge, and they haven't been the same. I don't think the Panthers are going to do very well as the year goes on because they lost that stabilizing influence with Joel Quenneville. Nevertheless, Joel Quenneville was out with the Florida Panthers. And then we want to take it a little bit further. John Gruden, everybody knows that he's a racist, among other things. And he was removed from the Ring of Honor with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not that I thought he ever deserved to be there in the first place because he won with Tony Dungy's team, just my opinion, but wanted to get Joel Quenneville and John Gruden right off the bat. So when we talk about a lot of coaches, we're talking about the fall from grace with all these championship coaches. So, but we'll stay on the matter at hand right now, and that's Urban Meyer and whether he's hireable. Now, I'm going to do something a little different tonight, okay? I know ESPN hammered this, and I know that I want to just mainly break it down to four people, and then each of you guys can comment on every one of them. Heather Dinich, the regular reporter, was talking about Urban Meyer and his bad decisions for longer than her three kids' Christmas list, and talks about Urban Meyer being a dishonest person. All right, Greg Fuchs, I think Heather was on target there. What are your thoughts about what Ms. Dinich had to say?
Yeah, the thing that surprised me, not just with Heather's comments, but all the other comments I put in my article is, these people are a lot closer to Urban Meyer than I am. I'm sure they've interviewed him, been around people who know him, have talked to players who have played for him. And you sort of get used to ESPN commentators, not being overly cruel to people. And all four of them just absolutely reamed Urban Meyer. And not so much for his coaching ability. Yes, he had some issues apparently learning how to coach men at the NFL level, but just as a human being. They just destroyed him, calling him a liar and a fraud. And I was watching all of that live on ESPN, and I was just sort of shaking my head like, wow, these guys are showing no mercy. And I was very surprised by it.
Well, what we're talking about was character assassination, but I'm going to break each and every one of their comments down because I want to make sure that we touch upon every one of them. But yeah, character assassination, that he did it to himself anyways, it describes what Urban Meyer is all about. But Greg, for a moment, let's just stick with Heather right now. When you talk about his bad decisions were longer than her three kids' Christmas list. That's a pretty strong statement from Heather.
Yeah, but when you look at all the stuff that Urban Meyer has done, you can go back to the college days, or you can just focus on the stuff he did since he was the head coach. He hired that guy from Iowa who had all the racist and bullying implications, and he got fired. He resigned a day after it all came to light. And, then he had the whole week 4, didn't fly home with the team. And, and then the whole thing with the woman dancing in the bar, and then the way he treated the players and the coaches, calling them out in public. Heather, I think that's what she's talking about. He made multiple bad decisions, just one upon another. what makes it even worse, after the whole video went viral with
All right, Rick, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad, you usually don't hear ESPN going off on people like that, but I guess Urban Meyer won't be getting a job at ESPN very soon. So maybe he can go to Fox or somewhere they can hire him as an analyst if they want him. But Urban Meyer will be back. I know a lot of people are angry with him, but there's been coaches that have done much, much worse than him. I think of Rick Pitino. I think of Bobby Petrino, who have done this multiple times with different organizations, and they're still coaching. Rick Pitino's at Iona right now. I know Bobby Petrino's, I think he's at Missouri State University as a head coach. They're still there, and so for people to think that Urban Meyer's not going to be back, I'm sorry, he will. I see him coming back in college in 2 years. He's won 3 national championships with 2 different schools. Only he and Nick Saban could say that. There is going to be a desperate college out there that needs a big splash, and Urban Meyer's there. They're going to give him a call. He's got 3 rings to prove it. So for people to think that his career's over and that he's never going to be back, he's not going to be back in the NFL. And I think he hated it. I think he realized this was a big mistake, and he looked miserable every time I saw the Jaguars play. He looked miserable. So he'll go back to college in a couple of years. Maybe Texas. Texas needs to make a big splash. I wasn't a big fan of them hiring Sarkisian. Sarkisian was terrible this year. Let's see what he does next year. And if he doesn't do good and they get rid of him, I won't be surprised if Meyer goes to Texas. So he'll be back. It's just a matter of time, and people will forget about it. And like I said, Rick Pitino and Bobby Petrino can coach. Why can't Urban Meyer?
All right, Rick. Mel, what are your thoughts about what Heather had to say in terms of that grocery list of problems?
Well, Urban's biggest problem was himself. And the difference between the college game and the pro game is the college game is about the coach. The pro game, it's about the players. See, in college, he was that guy. He was the rock star. And he tried to do that. He self-sabotaged himself, but trying to do that in the NFL by first thing he did was bring in Tebow. Well, of course, okay, so now they're going to be they want to talk to him, get his thoughts on it, get his ideas on it. It's about me, it's about me, it's about me. The trip when he decided not to go back with the team after they lost the game, that was all about him. It wasn't about the team. So everything was about him as far as Urban is concerned. And yeah, he made a laundry list of mistakes. There's no question about it. From, the first mistake was bringing in Tebow as a tight end. Automatically he loses credibility. Will he get another job? Yeah, there's no question about it. Lane Kiffin, I think, got fired on the tarmac at USC. He got another job. Steve Sarkisian was boozed up in practice. He got another job. He's lost some of his luster right now. That aura that he had about him when he left Ohio State. He's lost some of that because he was not able to do it at the highest level. I don't think anyone should, but I don't think anybody would give him an NFL job. But there's no question in my mind that he'll land a college job if he wants it. That's the question, if he wants it. I heard something that he got tired of recruiting, and recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. And so, if he wants it, somebody will give him an opportunity.
Well, it's amazing that when we talk about Urban Meyer per se, we'll go back to you, Greg. Okay, you were talking about Heather Dinich, and we talked about a lot of the grocery list of things. Did you want to expand upon those comments?
Yeah, I was, and I think maybe I lost my audio for you guys, but the number of when he had that after week 4 and he had the whole bar issue that went viral, and the owner of the Jag said, "You need to re-earn our trust and respect." So you would think Meyer would have been on his toes trying to do stuff positive, and he just went totally in the other direction. And he started blasting the players and the coaches and blaming them. I think he made the comment, my assistant coaches at Bowling Green were better than you guys. man, he just didn't seem adept at coaching men in the pros. And he just did everything wrong that you possibly could do wrong. And the owner of the Jags was left with, I don't think there's anything else, other decision he could have made.
Well, supposedly he made his decision prior to that last story coming out with the kicker. Supposedly
Right.
he had already made his mind up. Now, they're trying to withhold his pay. They're trying to say they fired him with cause, but yet they made a decision to fire him prior to that article coming out. So I don't know how that article coming out. So I don't know how all that's going to work. When they stated that Shad Khan had made a decision to fire him prior to that being made to the public, being released to the public, but I think he already knew about it because I think it was reported to the Jags front office.
Well, that's true. There was a culmination of incidents that enabled him to fire him with cause, which is why Urban Meyer won't see any of that money, no matter how hard he thinks he's going to do it.
Oh, he'll see it. He'll see some of that money. They're going to negotiate it. He's going to get some money.
We usually get settlement. So, all right, when we talk about character assassination, I don't think there's a better person out there capable of assassinating anybody's character than Paul Feinbaum. I think the Michigan Wolverines have always been on the brunt of it, Jim Harbaugh particularly, although in recent weeks, Feinbaum has been eating his words with Harbaugh and jumped a little bit more on his bandwagon since Michigan beat Ohio State. With that said, okay, Paul Feinbaum went on and called Meyer a liar and a fraud, and that he can't handle professionals. Though that's what we've been talking about now. So why don't you continue on the and elaborate on what you think Feinbaum was talking about?
I mean, I don't know about the lying part. I know he was loyal to a fault, and that may covering up for some things when they had the investigation with the wide receiver coach who was a grandson or somebody who he coached under, and he kind of swept those allegations or that issue under the rug with the domestic violence. I don't, a fraud. I mean, the guy did win at Florida. He did win at Ohio State, but he's lost his luster now. I think, the cat's kind of out of the bag now on Urban Meyer. Maybe it wasn't, obviously he did a great job of assembling talent at those two universities, getting the players to buy in, but he left both of those programs. He left Florida, and Florida hasn't done anything since he left. The cupboard was pretty bare when he left. He left Ohio State. They got a good, they got a recruiting pipeline there. I mean, obviously Ryan Day does a great job of getting players in there, and that thing has just continued on. But I think he can motivate kids, but motivating men is something that it would have taken him time to do that and to develop that skill and to learn the professional athlete. And I don't really know if he was interested in doing that. He looked at him on the sidelines. I mean, he just didn't really look like to me, he just looked like, man, what am I doing? What did I get myself into? Why did I do this? And then the franchise is not, the best of franchises. It's sort of unstable. It hasn't been very, very good. Why would he choose that franchise? Those are all questions that you'd have to ask yourself. Or, he'd have to ask himself, why did he choose that franchise? He had an opportunity, from my understanding, to, the interview for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it's a little better. I mean, at least Jerry Jones, he's going to do everything in his power to put a team together that can go out there and win championships, because Jerry has a lot more. He has a lot more yesterdays than he does tomorrows, and he'll do whatever he has to do to get a championship there in Dallas. So, I mean, he had an opportunity to go there. So, why would he come out? Why would he take on that job?
I'll tell you exactly why you'd want to take on that job. Number one, as Bill Parcells would say, I want to shop for the groceries too. So Urban Meyer, being a power type of guy, wanted to run the whole thing is what he wanted to do. And Shad Khan gave him the keys to the vehicle to do it. Unfortunately, he drove it off a cliff is what he did. So if you're a guy that, is obsessed with power like he is, then that's exactly what Shad Khan usually does, is leaves his guys alone and lets him do what he has to do. He's been patient with coaches like Gus Bradley and Doug Marrone, and the list goes on. And Urban Meyer was that big splash hire right up the road from the University of Florida. Of course, when he went in Ohio State, with with controversy there. We'll get into that a little while. But yeah, he had a chance to do it, everything he wanted. In fact, he had so much power that even the communications department ended up being changed around a little bit too. So, you know, you talk about coaches, communications department, whatnot. Urban Meyer could do whatever the heck he wanted until he realized he got in over his head. But that's why I think he would do it. But when people talk about liar and a fraud, a lot of people look at him as very two-faced, is what they really do. And that's where I think Feinbaum's comments called that you are a liar, you are a fraud. And, you know, that's, you know, right now it's pretty hard to dispel anything, because the one thing in college is if you're with a Power 5 school or a big school, you can get 10 wins blindfolded. Trying to get 10 wins in the NFL, and it's a much more difficult task when you deal with men versus kids. So, Rick, what do you think?
Well, I love Paul Feinbaum. I'm gonna have to disagree. I don't think he's a fraud because he's won 3 championships. He's a great coach. He's going to the Hall of Fame. So I just think that it's just, you know, he just looks like a jerk, Urban Meyer. He looks like an obnoxious, egotistical jerk. And, you know, I thought it was a bad idea for him to go to the NFL because it's a totally different game. You're dealing with adults and they're millionaires and they're celebrities. And they don't care who you are. They don't care how many championships you won. You're a rookie there. You're in their territory. And for him to act the way that he did, they just like said, no, we don't want to talk to you. And this was going around like since the very beginning he got there, that the players really tuned him out. They didn't listen to him. They didn't like what he said. He was, you know, and of course, for him to say that about his own staff, that's his own staff he picked, and say that they were stupid and idiots and all this stuff. And, you know, it was just mind blowing how wrong he got it. I mean, you can't even do that in college. So I don't know what happened there. I saw him there 2-3 years. I thought he'd be okay, then eventually go to college, but I don't think anybody saw it being this disastrous, you know, in 11 games, you know. So, but he'll be back in college. I know people are angry with him right now, but hey, we see much worse coaches get another coaching job. So he'll be back. If I was him, I would just disappear for a year, or go on like ESPN, or go on like Bobby Petrino did and cry and I'm sorry for what I did. Please forgive me. I think Urban needs to do something like that, like a sit down interview and just apologize and that I was wrong. And then he can kind of rehabilitate his character, and then he'll get a head coaching job within 2 years. So I think that's something he should do right now. And they'll probably settle on what kind of money to get, because they'll settle somewhere down the middle. And so that's what I would do if I was Urban Meyer, just kind of disappear for a while, wait for that head coaching job, because somebody will grab him. I mean, he's like the poison apple. You don't want to get it, but it's like, oh God, but he's so successful where he went. We got to. So people are not going to resist about getting him. So it's interesting what ESPN said about him, because they're usually very politically correct. But yeah, they really went off on him. And I don't see Urban Meyer getting a job at ESPN anytime soon.
Yeah, let me talk about another one that I know Greg mentioned in his story, and Greg did write an article for the South Florida Tribune as well. So, and you can read that at www.southfloridatribune.com. But we talked about Dan Orlowski, and for a lot of you Lions fans that remember Dan Orlowski, he was the quarterback on the 0-16 team and ran out of the back of the end zone with the Minnesota Vikings. Otherwise, they might have been able to win that one. We'll leave that for another day. But Dan Orlowski's characterization of Urban Meyer is he's a bad dude, bad coach, obsessed with power. So it's pretty hard to really argue against all 3 of those points, right, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, all 4 of those people saying something similar. And if you actually saw the comments live, it was as much about how they said it versus what they said, because you could tell that Orlowski and Feinbaum particularly, I mean, they were angry. You could tell that they did not like Urban Meyer as a human being. They detested him. And that came through clearly on ESPN. And that's one of the things that just really shocked me, because like Rick said, you know, ESPN tends to be a little, politically liberal, and they don't really go after people like that. But man, all 4 of them within like 10 minutes of each other, just going after this guy, guns blazing. I was taken aback, but I also enjoyed it.
Well, Rick,
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising because they didn't really dump on John Gruden, and he said the most racist, most disgusting things, ever. And I mean, I was horrified by what John Gruden said, and they seemed more upset about Urban Meyer, the way he was acting, than John Gruden. So I was surprised by that. So, um, hey, I mean, I guess it is what it is. I mean, he just came off as a jerk, Urban Meyer. We could say that he's a phenomenal coach. I'm sorry, I'm not going to here to defend his character. He's a great coach. He'll end up somewhere else, but he he looked like a complete jerk. How funny is that? He kicked the kicker allegedly. So there's just the way he ran the organization. He just thought he was back in college. He can do whatever he wants, and they're like, nope, ain't gonna happen here. And it's disastrous what happened to him, but he'll bounce back. But for ESPN to go after him like that and attack him, they really made it very personal about what a bad human being he really is, and what that he's just has no morals, and kind of just it's all about Urban and nobody else. So and like he didn't lose that luster of himself, but if he just disappears for a little bit, he'll be back, and he'll go back to college. He wins another championship. People will forget about it. People forget about it next week. We'll be talking about someone in a couple of weeks or so, probably another head coach, probably another player that did something, and we'll forget about Urban Meyer. So he'll be fine. But it's kind of interesting what ESPN did do, because they really don't do that.
Well, Mel, anytime you go out there and hear an individual say, one, you're bad dude, bad coach, and says power, what are the thoughts that enter your mind when you get hit with each of those three?
I mean, I don't think that's any words that you want to have associated with yourself. I think that would be very hurtful to hear those kind of words being uttered by people. And I think that Urban needs to do a self-examination and a self-evaluation, look at himself in the mirror and try to see where this is coming from. And, if there's truth to it, he needs to correct it. Even if he wants to get back in the college game. I mean, players complained about him at the University of Florida while he was there right before he left, that he treated treated the star players favorable, gave them lenient punishment and different things of that nature. And if you were in this so-called circle of trust with Urban Meyer, those were kind of his guys that he kind of took under his wing and protected, and everybody else was fair game. So I think he's going to have to, do some reflecting if he wants to get back into the coaching game, and he's going to have to make some changes, because now the game, even the college game, has changed from when he was last there. Now with the NIL and the players being able to transfer and not have to sit out a year, not having to sit out a year, they're just not going to take that. I mean, you see all the, when you look at the transfer portal now, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's just a cluster. I mean, players last game of the season, I mean, middle of the season, players are hitting the portal. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they got bowl games coming up. These players don't even care about playing in bowl games. I'm hitting the transfer portal. I'm getting out of here and going somewhere else and going to find some greener pastures somewhere else. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you see all these quarterbacks leaving. I mean, they're just leaving. I was reading the other day, I think another quarterback out of Ohio State just transferred somewhere or hit the portal or something like that.
Right.
So,
Bo Nix got transferred too.
Yeah, Bo Nix transferred to Oregon. I don't know how that's going to work out. I thought, I think Oregon has a quarterback over there.
USC guy went to Pittsburgh.
Right. I think a couple USC guys transferred. I see UCLA picked up a guy from UCF. I mean, it's just, it's just crazy. This transfer portal. The kid who was a Heisman Trophy favorite, was going to South Carolina, from Oklahoma. He's going to go to South Carolina.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a free for all. I mean, they've got to do something about that to kind of control that. I mean, I think there needs to be a certain period of time where you have this kind of free agency where players can go ahead and move from place to place. But, no matter where you go, you're going to have to compete. These coaches, if they're promising them something and are unable to deliver, and unfortunately, I think you only get a one-time deal with this transfer and not having to give up a year of eligibility. You go somewhere and you're not happy and the grass is not green on the other side of the fence, you're stuck. You're stuck.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, you're right. You make up a lot of really good, interesting points about the transfer portal and people moving around. But like you mentioned early at the beginning when I had asked you, Mel, bad dude, bad coach, obsessed with power. You don't want any of that to be tagged for sure. Now, the other individual that spoke critically of Urban Meyer was Louis Riddick, who actually interviewed for the general manager's position for Jacksonville. You never know, he could be in the loop again for it again. But, you know, he said the biggest failure of leadership is on a part of a coach is probably probably in the history of the NFL citing Meyer. It's pretty hard to dispute a guy like Louis Riddick, who has a very high football IQ, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, right now this is the hot topic right now. So everybody has, in Urban, his he's up the flagpole and his behind is exposed and everybody's shooting arrows at him right now. This is the news. This is the news cycle. This is what's the hot topic this week. Next week they'll be talking about something else. End of the year they'll be talking about nagging, how lousy he was, and so forth and so on as a coach. I mean, you just looked at him yesterday. You could see the pressure that was getting to him. I mean, a head coach getting a unsportsmanlike penalty. I mean, how can you tell your players to keep their composure and you can't keep yours? So, it's Urban is just gonna have to do. He's gonna have to do a lot of self-analysis. He's gonna have to take all this stuff in that everybody's saying about him. Now, it's kind of unfair that you say these things about him right now while you're kind of kicking him while he's down. Not, figuratively speaking, not literally speaking, but now that he's no longer the coach, now everybody feels free to talk about him and say he's this and say he's that. I mean, we heard a lot of bad things that were coming out of the Jaguar organization. You heard Trevor Lawrence the same week that Urban Meyer got fired, talking about we got to, do away with some of these distractions. And usually the distractions are players. It's not the head coach is the one that's causing the distraction. So you got your leader, your number one draft pick, talking about, we got to figure out a way to do away with a lot of these distractions and just get out there and play football. I think that carried a lot of weight with ownership when he came out there and said that. I think that had a huge effect on ownership's decision to get rid of him, because he's just a drama queen. I mean, it's just all about me. It's always some kind of drama surrounding Urban Meyer. 1 week is him and the coach's fault. Then you hear about him and a player, getting into a verbal argument. So, I mean, it's just one thing after another. He had to always keep himself out there. And, eventually this got tired of him, man. They just want to play football. These guys just want to go play football and try to win some football games. And so eventually they just had enough.
Yeah, I think Lawrence, as the face of the franchise, he seemed to be regressing as the season went along, not progressing. I think that went into the decision. Hey, Mel, if I could ask you, the whole Josh Lambo kicking incident, put some context into that. Have you come across stuff like that in your days in the NFL or heard other similar stories about stuff like that happening with coaches and players?
No, never have heard anything. I mean, guys, you got to understand, when you're at football practice, even if a coach really tries to raise their voice at you, you kind of, the first time you kind of tell them, say, hey, look, coach, look up there in the stands. You see that? That's my wife and my kids up there. You're not going to talk to me like that in front of my wife and my kids. Man, they're out here watching practice, and you just ain't going to berate me and talk to me any old kind of way. Now, I'm going to let you get away with it this time. The next time, we're going to throw blows. That's how guys are in the NFL. I mean, they're very, very serious about it. You don't have to berate players. Now, some coaches did that. Bill Parcells was one of those guys that just would just berate players. And some players could accept that. Other players can't. You have to know your players. Jimmy Johnson, I'll never forget, the one thing that he said is, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to treat all my players differently. And people looked at him like, what? Normally you say I'm going to treat them all the same. He said, no, I'm going to treat them all differently. I'm not going to treat Troy Aikman the same way I treat the 47th guy on the roster. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to treat them all differently. And you have, just like your kids, you can't treat all your kids the same. You got to treat them all differently. They all have different types of personalities. They respond different ways. But I've never heard of anything like that, in my days, where a coach goes around kicking a player. And then after that, going to say, well, I can do whatever I want because I'm the head ball coach. I mean, come on now. That's just an egomaniac.
Well, you talk about the fact that failure of leadership, and as we continue on the ESPN, had Damian Woody and Marcus Spears adding to what you talked about, saying that, yeah, this guy lays a hand on a 300-pound offensive lineman, all of a sudden Urban Meyer will find himself thinking he's in the UFC instead of the NFL. And you just can't get away with that kind of stuff, especially when you're dealing with these men, like you say, they're in front of their families. Jimmy Johnson's different than Urban Meyer in a sense that he has established himself in the NFL being what he is. So the
But,
standard,
he was a guy that came from college too,
well,
and
that's
he
true.
struggled early on, but he didn't make these kind of missteps like Urban Meyer. It wasn't about him. He didn't make it about him. It was about his players. I mean, people love playing for Jimmy.
Well,
That's
let's
one
put it,
thing that everybody said. They love playing for Jimmy.
well, let's continue on that then. If you're obviously right, Mel. First of all, Jimmy Johnson didn't hire Chris Doyle, okay, where we're talking about the racism and the bullying out of Iowa, item number one. Number two, Jimmy Johnson didn't go ahead and pick on a kicker, kicking him during a stretching exercise. You got to pick a battle. You better do a whole lot better than just a kicker. And by the way, Josh Lambo, if you're looking for a job, maybe they can use you in Carolina with the Panthers because they might have an opening there. We won't get Rick Curti started with that, but just thought I'd throw that out there anyways. And feuds with the players and the coaches, let's face reality. Marvin Jones, former Detroit Lion, the captain of the team, had to run in and had to be convinced to stay there. And obviously he's just one incident out of many. And of course, the Cincinnati video altogether was a joke, not flying back with your own team, which set Shad Khan off to begin with. You've talked about all the incidents that set the owner off. That was probably the one where you don't travel back with your team.
At least he got fired then.
Yeah,
really.
well, that's it.
He got fired then.
A lot of people thought he should have been fired. And then, of course, Tim Tebow bringing him in. And by the way, where was Tim Tebow last week when Urban Meyer was getting attacked? Well, Tim, doing some old good Samaritan work. I was looking for him on Friday on First Take, never saw him there. I guess they had a different show altogether. So Tim Tebow did a great disappearing job and wasn't anywhere on the ESPN platform. Now that I got that out of the way, okay, I'll let you guys comment on all those, but there's a couple of things I want to make sure that we don't forget. We talked about the fact that Florida covered up the shenanigans of multiple players. Aaron Hernandez was prominently discussed in that. And of course, the Ohio State situation with the alleged assault by the assistant coach, Jack Smith, on his wife, all of which was trying to get wins. So when you talk about the cumulative effect here of all the things that I mentioned here, okay, Greg, you're the one who compiled a lot of this information. Break it all down in its proper perspective when you look at the entire picture that I just painted for everybody out there.
Well, I think the stuff that happened in Jacksonville, people consider that first. All right. I mean, that viral video about the lady dancing in the bar, that got a lot of attention. All right. Fair or not. Obviously, his wife should have been the most upset. And just the stuff that came out recently about him, berating the players and the coaches. I mean, that just seems crazy to me. But I think you have to look at the big picture, which what I think most of the ESPN people were thinking of. I mean, this goes back to at least the Florida days. I'm not sure what happened at Utah or Bowling Green, but I remember when he was at Florida, I think he had like 20 players who had been arrested. And he covered it all up. I think he tried to intercede with the police, get charges eliminated. And he just wanted guys playing on Saturday. That's all he cared about. And, he gets paid to win games. And that's what he did at a very high level for a long time. And I agree with all of you. I think somebody will give him a job. Is it going to be a premier program like Texas right off? Or is it going to be maybe a mid-major type program? I mean, Rick Pitino going to college basketball, a lot of people think he never would get hired again. And he did. He had to go to Iona, and he seems happy at Iona. I think he might enjoy being out of the spotlight a little bit. I think Urban Meyer is probably a guy who likes the spotlight. He wants to be on game day, and he wants his games in prime time, and he wants to be mentioned for national championships. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, people have short memories. College boosters and presidents, they want to win. So somebody will roll the dice with him.
If this thing doesn't work out with who is it, Napier over there at Florida, he might be back in Florida in 2 years, 2 or 3 years.
Could be.
Yeah, that could be music to Gator's ears. That's an interesting point. Rick, where do you want to go with this?
I mean, he'll be back. Like I said, I think Texas would be a perfect place for Urban Meyer. It's Texas. They want to make a big splash. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of boosters. He'll be in the limelight. They just have to tell him, you can't act like that. because you'll be gone. And I'm sure if they do get him and he signs his contract, there'll be some morals clause in there. Like, if you act like that, like you did in Jacksonville, you won't get paid, period. So if they do something like that, I think, like I said, I think he'll just disappear, get some reflect on it, fouls him or fouls his agent. I go and have a sit down interview, and like Bobby Petrino did when he got fired from Arkansas, and he was crying and boo-hooing, and I'm sorry for what I did, and please forgive me. He could do something like that. There's no doubt in my mind he'll be a head coach again. Texas would be good for him. I mean, hey, UNCC, if their coach leaves, I'd love for him to come to Charlotte. That'd be great. I don't know if he wants to come here. I would love to have Urban Meyer come to Charlotte. So would UNCC. Someone will take him. He's a big name. He's a legend. He's won 3 championships. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's a great college coach. It didn't work out for Nick Saban in the NFL. It didn't work out for Lou Holtz in the NFL. And they did well after that. They didn't kick anybody, but it worked out well for them. So people will forget about it. And I think what's so funny is that when he was growing up, Ohio State was his dream job, and Woody Hayes was his idol. And yet Woody Hayes, did he attack a player during a game and got fired? So I think that it's kind of ironic that he's kicked a player, and then the guy he likes was a guy that went after a player during a game. So, but he'll bounce back, and I think he needs to go back to college. I just thought him going to the NFL was a big mistake. I was very surprised, but I think they gave him like $14 million a year. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to turn that down.
I'm going to throw something out there that we haven't even talked about tonight. Okay. You got the United States Football League starting up in the spring. Okay. And then you also have the XFL scheduled to resume for the 3rd time in 2023. Okay. Everybody talks about the fact he doesn't like to recruit. And now we have an opportunity to go to one or both of these leagues. And I have a feeling both of these leagues are a little teeth to them, because you got Fox behind them and NBC. And, there might be a bit more money. And I think there's that need for pro football to try to develop players. Could any of you guys see, I'll let every one of you comment, starting with you, Greg, Urban Meyer going either to the United States Football League or the XFL? Greg, you tell me your opinion on this.
My gut says right now, no. I guess it seems like he'd be settling for something low on the totem pole, and he may be waiting for some other opportunity to open up. The college football season will be over soon. Could be a few more firings, who knows? Or maybe he just, takes a year off, or maybe he gets back into TV and he just sees what opens up over the next 12 months. And he may hold out for one of those premier jobs like a Texas.
Okay, Mel, what do you think?
I don't see him coaching in the USFL or the XFL.
You don't?
I see him going back to college. You look at the landscape of college football right now, there's been a lot of movement. If he just plays his cards right, he can rebuild his image back on TV with one of these networks, whether it's Fox or CBS, or heck, he might even go back to ESPN, who knows, and rebuild his image, and use, whatever relationships that he has out there to land himself a premier job. I mean, you look at Notre Dame, how long, hopefully, I hope, this guy is able to live up to the standards of Notre Dame football and continue on what Brian Kelly has done there. And hopefully he can keep those guys competitive. But look at 2 or 3 years out from now, that could potentially be a job that's open. Oklahoma could potentially be a job that's open. We've talked, I've heard Texas mentioned here a lot. In 2 years, that'll be Sarkisian's 3rd year there. If he doesn't get that thing turned around, we know they're not very patient there at all. The SEC is always having constant turnover. All these coaches are chasing money, chasing bigger paydays. So there's going to be an opportunity for him at a program where he can go out there and win. He can pick and choose. I mean, they talked about him at one time. His name was mentioned, I think, before Brian Kelly got the job at Notre Dame, with the Notre Dame job, that might be one of the jobs that he would leave Florida for, would be to go coach at Notre Dame. So we'll have to see. I mean, maybe he still has that ambition to coach at Notre Dame. but I don't think he'll coach in one of those other leagues like Bob Stoops has done. I think Bob Stoops is just killing time or whatever. I don't know what he's doing. By coaching.
Well, Bob Stoops right now is an interim. He's coaching in a bowl game, and he just tried to keep Oklahoma on track. And you're right. He made enough money and cachet there that, he's a part of the program. And he's doing what you talked about. All you guys have talked about that he's all right. Urban Meyer could be suited for a television gig. Okay, Rick, you haven't had a chance to talk about this. What, XFL, USFL, yes or no, Rick?
No, his ego's way too big. That would be like a demotion for him.
His brand is too big for USFL.
Yeah. I mean, his ego is big, and like I said, he'll be back in coaching. There's no way in the world Urban Meyer's last reputation. And the last thing we talk about is, hey, wasn't he the coach that kicked that kicker in Jacksonville and lasted 11 games? Right. You think he wants that on his ego? He wants to be, no, I won 3 championships with 2 different schools. I've turned around every college program with Bowling Green in Utah and Florida. Look at Ohio State, what I've done there. And, Jacksonville was a mistake. He never should have went. He never should have went to the pros. It should have, that was a big mistake, but he's going to repair that, and he'll go back to college, and he wins a championship, or he goes to a desert school that has like 0 to 2 wins, and he turns them around and they get 10, 11 wins. Man, they'll go forget about him. Everybody will love Urban Meyer again. Like, hey, welcome back. The prodigal son's back in college football. So we have short memories. In a week, we'll talk about some other head coach or some other player. Somebody will do something, and people, just like John Gruden, people are still disgusted by him, but you don't hear him all the time like you used to, and like I said, Rick Pitino could come back, and Bobby Petrino, they've done much, much worse, in my opinion. Urban Meyer will be back.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on the fact that if Urban Meyer were to take any job in major college football, I definitely agree with each and every one of you about Texas, that's for sure, because they don't have a whole lot of patience. But there's no crime for a big coach to go to a smaller university. The one that stands out to me is when Frank Solich left the University of Nebraska and did a good job with Ohio University, the Bobcats over there. And there are a lot of other coaches that have taken that same way where, like you said, Greg, you get out of the spotlight a little bit. And Urban Meyer's done that before. And again, part of this whole thing that we can't lose sight of is, if the college football playoff ever expands up to 12, then those jobs where an at-large team can conceivably get in the worst thing. And Hugh Freeze, I think he coached Mississippi, doing a pretty good job over with the Liberty Flames. And I know there's a bunch of other ones that I'm probably forgetting as well. So, should the college football playoff expand up to 12 teams like many people think it will down the road, there's no reason why that Urban Meyer wouldn't land at one of those mid-majors. Again, bear in mind that only 4 coaches have won the national championship in the Super Bowl. Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, you got Pete Carroll, and is there another one that I'm probably forgetting?
It's 3.
3. Okay, well, there's 3. And then, of course, you talk about some of the ones that have failed to make it from college. John McKay, Mel, you know better, greatest coach, one of the greatest coaches ever to college football. Didn't make it in the NFL, and Bud Wilkinson, another guy.
He had an expansion team. He had a tough gig. The way they expanded back then wasn't the same way they expand now. I mean, he was, he had guys literally off the street.
That's true, but Bud Wilkinson was a different story when he went from Oklahoma to St. Louis, and of course the list goes on and on and on. Gene Stallings had a nice career when he went down to college. Howard Schnellenberger. I know we're really getting in some names, but I think the one thing that we could agree on is that Urban Meyer probably is better suited for the college game than he is with pros, because you try to pull a stunt like that, even in these other 2 leagues, they're still getting paid.
And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with that, because these college guys are making more money than the pros.
That's true.
Yep.
But again, the question is, do they take away a scholarship if you strike the coach? Whereas in the pros, it's another story. The physical fine line about contact, laying your hand on a coach if you're demeaned.
The difference between the college athlete is they're hanging on to every word of the coach, because they hold the key to where it is that they're trying to get to. They're trying to get to the next level. And this guy's has a proven track record of winning, number one, playing big time games and getting guys to the next level. They're hanging on every word that he's saying. So if he tells them to go run through a brick wall, they're going to run through going to run through the brick wall, because they believe that their destiny lies in this man's hands. And so they're going to do whatever it is that they have to do. Now, there's obviously, there's exceptions. There's going to be some guys who are, they're going to go off and do their own thing and try to do things their way, and they probably won't last at Urban Meyer's program. But he wants guys, and he'll have guys that are in awe of him because of the things that he's accomplished and the players that he's taken to the next level. I mean, that's the big intrigue. Why do all these kids want to go to Alabama? Nick Saban wins, and those players go to the next level. That's what all these guys want. That's what all these guys want from the inner city. They want an opportunity to play the game at the highest level and get paid.
All right, so as we put a ribbon on top of this broadcast here, is Urban Meyer hireable? You guys seem to think that he is over at the college level. Is that, you guys agree?
That's
Yes.
I don't think an NFL owner would touch him with a 10-foot.
Yeah, he's done. And
Okay.
college.
All right, so then I'm going to hit you each and every guys with a brief follow-up question, Greg. Okay, how many years does it take for Urban Meyer to get to gain employment again?
I give him a year.
What about you, Mel?
I say 2 years, take a break. That's if he wants to do it. His name is going to come up. Every time there's a big time coaching job available, his name is going to come up. Heck, just with all the stuff that was going on in Jacksonville, his name came up with the USC job. All the guys, the former players who were there, whether it was Reggie Bush, Keyshawn Johnson, whoever, they thought that, hey, we need to get a guy like Urban Meyer over here at USC. If he wanted to, he could have saved face and took the USC job, just left, did a Bobby Petrino. Say, hey, I can't do this, and just get on out of there midway through the season and go back to college. He could have done that.
All right, so Greg, you say 1 year. Mel, what's your answer again?
I'd say about 2 years. Give himself, if he wants to do it, give himself to rehabilitate, give himself a chance to rehabilitate himself, and the right job has got to come up. He's already done the mid-major. He's not doing that. He's not going that. He's going Power 5. He's not doing Group of 5. He's not going to do that. He's going to go Power 5, and I think the only job that would be big enough for him would be a Notre Dame job or a Texas job, something like that.
Fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
it has to be the right job. And just look at this past
Oklahoma.
month, all the elite job. I think there's like 6 or 7 top programs in the country. No one foresaw Oklahoma coach leaving, Notre Dame coach leaving, LSU coach. I mean, everybody left. If you got 2 or 3 or 4 teams like that a year from now, Urban's going to certainly want one of those, I think.
All right, Rick, time frame.
2 years. He'll take a year off to disappear, so people will stop talking about him, and he'll end up in Texas. He'll be the next Texas Longhorns head coach. I don't like Sarkisian there at all. I thought he was a bad hire, and they were really, really bad. And I just don't see him
Like a
turning it
desperate
around.
hire.
Yeah, they're going to hire him. They got the money. They want to make a big splash. He's there. He's won 3 championships. Texas would be the perfect fit for him, and I think the best fit for him. And I see him
I'll
going
be
to the
amazed if
Longhorns.
Sarkisian is the coach a year from now. So you may have to move up your timeline by a year.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? I'm going to say 3 to 4 years is what I'm going to say. I think it takes a little while for him to get back there. I think you guys are right about the TV situation where he needs to rehab his image on television a little bit to convince people that he's a changed person. But I'm going to say 3 to 4 years in Texas. But I'm going to throw a little curveball at you guys, okay, that nobody's even brought on. You guys ready? Okay. I think that there's a program desperate to bring on a guy like him. It would be the University of Nebraska.
oh,
Think about that
Yeah.
for a minute. The University of Nebraska in the Big Ten, they're desperate to win. So whether that becomes the case, I'm just going to throw that out there for Huskers fans that are listening here. Okay, so I know that I've caught every one of you guys off guard. We know the University of Miami job isn't going to be available because Mario Cristobal has a hand on that, and we won't get into the college jobs. We'll leave that for another one. But I say 3 to 4 years that he needs to rehab himself on TV. But I got to tell you, I think like all you guys, okay, I was unbelievably amazed at the character assassination that ESPN went ahead and laid on him. I don't think I've ever seen a network come at somebody as hard as ESPN did. And we're talking about ESPN, who once upon a time fired Rush Limbaugh during the middle of an NFL season, coming down on this guy. I mean, they went at him like I've never seen a network go at him. And here's the thing, you know why you know, why you talked about Rick, John Gruden not being hit on too hard. Well, once upon a time he worked for ESPN, so they're going to be a little easier on him. But they don't owe Meyer anything. They really don't owe anything. But John Gruden worked for him, and that's why I don't think you went ahead and see Gruden them piling on. And you know, so now we again, as we wrap this thing up, Joel Quenneville, we started with the show here. I don't know how long it'll be if he ever gets back in the NHL again because of the allegations with the cover up with the sexual assault. John Gruden is definitely done. And of course, Urban Meyer, well, I guess he stands the best chance of the three to get rehired. So, you know, I think we've covered it in a lot of ways. So 3 to 4, and you guys have certainly made it yours. We'll see which one's right way down the line and see what happens. But I could see him on TV relatively within about a year or two after he's self-evaluated himself and looked at everything that he's done. And, you know, you seem to think they don't get paid now with being fired with cause. Well, we'll see whether there's a settlement or not. But if I were Shad Khan and I know that organization, I don't see Urban Meyer getting a nickel of that because of the cumulative effect of all the different offenses that he's had, not just a particular incident that stands out.
Well, you know, that's Shad Khan. This is not Al Davis. It's a difference between the two. I mean, they got lawyers and stuff involved. He's going to get his money. Maybe not all of it, but he'll get probably 2/3 to 3/4 of his money, I believe.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's a judge.
This is not Al Davis.
That's true.
Yeah. How old is Urban Meyer?
57.
67?
57.
Oh, 57. Okay, I thought he was older than that. So the clock's not really ticking on him time-wise.
Yeah.
Well, he made enough money where, like you guys say, you could take a year or two off, so it doesn't matter. Although I think he gets 3 or 4 with a TV job somewhere in between. All right. With that said, as we wrap up this edition of the Sports Exchange, Greg, why don't you let people know how they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I write for the South Florida Tribune, so www.southfloridatribune.com. And you can also follow me on Twitter at gfuchs at Gregory Fuchs.
Mel?
All the social media accounts at Mel Farr Jr., Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, email melfarjr@gmail.com. And also what we're doing for the youth up there in Michigan. I don't think we're going to do it this year down in Atlanta, but in Michigan, we're having the camp up there in Michigan. You find out information on that at melfar.org. And then I'm sending out a personal invitation to Urban Meyer to help him rehabilitate his image. If he wants to come on the show with us, we'll be more than happy to have him.
No problem. Hey,
Love
with
that.
all due respect, you know, the Florida Gators are a media distribution partner for us, so among others. Just had to throw that in there. All right, Rick, go ahead.
Well, my website is www.charlottebats.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, also on Charlotte Bats. I'm on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, CLTBATS. And I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats, CLTBATS. And if you have any questions or comments or want to help with our organization, you can email me at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com, cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
And as for us, well, this is South Florida Tribune. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. I'm the CEO and publisher of the South Florida Tribune. We are a multifaceted operation. If you want to get a hold of us on Twitter, you can do so at Tribune South. Please don't hesitate to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel for free. Then you get the video and the audio all rolled into one. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You can see the broadcast there. And all of our content is there. Candy Ebling does an incredible job keeping it all together. You can find us on Instagram as well, South Florida Tribune. And if you want to hear these broadcasts, you can do so at iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. So we have lots of different ways that you can go out there and hear what each and every one of us has to say. So, you know, I can also be found on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth as well. So feel free to reach out to us. Our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com as well. So, well, guys, we certainly wanted to make sure that we drive the message home about Urban Meyer. And I personally, before the show started, didn't think he was hireable. I'll say that out at the top of at the beginning, but after listening to what every one of you have had to say, maybe he is hireable at the college level, but time will probably have to heal this one. But I don't know. We will find out as time goes on. But meanwhile, folks, I guess we can't ignore the fact that COVID-19 is once again reaping havoc, right, Rick?
Yeah, it is. We have this new variant coming out. It's spiking up in North Carolina. It's spiking up everywhere. Hospitals are getting flooded again. And, people just, if you haven't been vaccinated yet, just get vaccinated. I've gotten vaccinated. I got my booster. I even got a flu shot for added protection. So get those vaccination shots. Keep wearing your mask, social distance, and don't put yourself at risk. Just be, have fun, but do it safely. And so I encourage people to get vaccinated, and hopefully we can do away with this and get back with our normal lives, be maskless, and continue to be around family and friends in big crowds.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how everything is really spiraled out of control with here we are with this Tuesday night football with 2 games going on, and a lot of the things that are going on with the NBA, the NHL, of course, MLB, we don't have to worry about. Nothing's going on there for a while. And, and I'm just amazed that we have Tuesday night football. I'm thinking I covered a game up Sunday in Jacksonville, and I'm watching Trevor Lawrence play, and I think the kid has a boatload of potential. And James Robinson, who in Urban Meyer's mind wasn't good enough to put on the field, but yet there's a bigger picture out here. Who, by the way, Robinson did score a touchdown for whatever it's worth. But there's such a bigger picture out there, in terms of health. We're losing a lot of lives here, and yet all of us have the platform to talk about sports is what we're doing. So, but meanwhile, each of you guys did a great job tonight, as you always do. I appreciate your professionalism and your insights and your expertise, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, and we'll look forward to bringing you guys back on again real soon. But meanwhile, on behalf of Greg Fuchs, Mel Farr Jr., and Rick Curti, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. God bless, be safe, everybody, and have yourself a great night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, everybody.